New technology that could change political races in this country forever. This is a big deal.
This is a game changer. We've always had politicians who lie.
No.
What we're facing now is a tidal wave of disinformation. We stop being able to tell what's real and what's not. Democracy's truest enemy is apathy.
How easy is it to create, say, a voice clone of yourself?
Very easy. It's a matter of seconds.
That's scary. Well, in case you haven't heard, it's an election year. And that means plenty of people are out to fool you and me. Not just with false campaign promises, there might be a few of those floating around, but also with a new technology that could change political races in this country forever. I'm talking about artificial intelligence, or AI. You may have heard about people using AI services like ChatGPT or OpenAI to write emails or to enhance internet searches. There are also many great ways to use AI. I've used it to help me reach the Hispanic community. I don't speak fluent Spanish, but for me to be able to allow my Spanish-speaking viewers to see important interviews from former President Donald Trump to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, I didn't need to speak Spanish or use Spanish subtitles or even an interpreter. AI was able to make me into a fluent Spanish-speaking journalist. You won't believe how real it looks and sounds. Take a look. La semana pasada, 12 jurados deliberaron y emitieron un veredicto culpable de 34 cargos de falsificación de registros comerciales contra Donald Trump. ¿No cuestiona su toma de decisiones y la confianza en ellas cuando hay tantas críticas de medios de comunicación y líderes mundiales?
Miren, a la comunidad internacional no pueden, por un lado, hablar del derecho de Israel a ejercer la autodefensa.
Now, I've generated that, but haven't used it yet because I'm wrestling back and forth. I think it's important to take down language barriers for certain populations, but I think you have to use safeguards. Like on that clip, we have translated or generated by AI. I think it's important, if you do that, to engage the viewer where they have to click at least and acknowledge, I understand that this is a translation AI for my convenience. I think you have to affirmatively have them say, I understand this, because I don't want anybody to be confused. I'm not trying to impress anybody that I all of a sudden speak fluent Spanish, or that Prime Minister Netanyahu does. But AI is also being used to create damaging, defamatory content, like using someone's real photos to create fake images of them engaging in a crime, or taking a recording of someone's real voice and manipulating it to make them say something offensive. It's called Deepfakes. And some of them are done so well, you would think they were real. And it's not just online trolls doing this. Both Democrats and Republicans have used AI in political attacks. Some lighthearted, others not so nice.
This just in, we can now call the 2024 presidential race for Joe Biden.
I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color.
Voting this Tuesday only enables the Republicans in their quest to elect Donald Trump. Your vote makes a difference in November, not this Tuesday.
Well, some of those images you just saw were created by the Center for Countering Digital Hate, a nonprofit organization working to stop the spread of online hate and disinformation. Imran Ahmed is the organization's CEO. His recent report, Fake Image Factories 2, How Midjourney is Failing to Prevent the Creation of AI Images That Threaten Elections, calls for urgent measures to combat misinformation and hold tech companies accountable. So, Imran, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
This is a big deal, right?
I think this is a game changer. And we've seen over the past few years a sort of a growth in the amount of lies in our politics. We've always had politicians who lie.
No.
But what we've seen now is a radical shift in which there are, in fact, lies as sort of the sheer bulk of them almost outweigh the truth.
Right.
And that's making it more and more difficult for voters to make a legitimate choice. Look, here's the truth. We have a right to make a decision, to hold our opinions, and they are protected by the First Amendment on candidates. But we want to know that we are holding those opinions based on facts and on truths. And every time someone spreads a lie, spreads disinformation, spreads a fake image or fake audio of someone, that actually takes away that most sacred and fundamental right. It makes a mockery of it. And we're seeing that grow and grow over time. And now we're seeing AI. Gosh, the cost of production of one of these things is literally zero. And then the cost of distributing it to potentially millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of American people and billions around the globe is, again, zero. And that's a charter for bad actors.
Well, that is a problem. It seems to me like you say that politicians lie, they exaggerate, they manipulate. And that's one thing where we can look at that and we can fact check if we want to. A lot of that's on us. But then if we've got them appearing to say something that they didn't actually say, that's a whole different level.
You know, 20 years ago, if a politician lied, there were journalists whose job it was to show their lies to the public. And frankly speaking, like when someone's caught in a lie, it used to be a big problem. Now there's a tidal wave of disinformation that is overwhelming us. We keep being told you should check your sources, you should fact check. I'm theoretically an expert on these things, but I don't have the time to do that. And that becomes really, really problematic when you're talking about a system in which you can be sitting next to someone and they might hold a belief which is based on a lie, a deep fake, which is completely bonkers, that someone was doing something terrible, that they were cheating on their wife, that they committed a crime, done something terrible. And of course, they've got no basis in fact whatsoever. And that actually, it fractures our society even more. Like I think we've all had enough of Christmases or Thanksgivings where you can't talk to 5 members of the family around the table because they say something completely bonkers. We'd like to have a little bit more truth and a little bit less lies in our politics.
Well, we have a real story about someone who experienced a deep fake. Paul Vallas ran for Chicago mayor, but he narrowly lost by just 4 points in the Democratic primary. And he blames, at least in part, a deep fake recording that sounded just like his voice, but spread a very controversial message that is opposite to everything he stands for. Take a look at this.
These days, people will accuse a cop of being bad if they kill one person that was running away. Back in my day, cops would kill, say, 17 or 18 civilians in their career, and nobody would bat an eye.
I believe that AI is dangerous and can impose a danger to really the democratic process by distorting a person's record. I was a candidate who made public safety a top priority. Chicago's had more murders than any city in the country, more mass shootings than any city in the country.
Crime is out of control, and combative leadership is failing us.
Paul Vallas will put crime and your safety first.
Because public safety was such a major issue, someone in support of my opponent was using AI to portray me as dismissive of police shootings. It sounded very much like me. They absolutely did.
We need to stop defunding the police and start refunding them.
See, the recordings were taken down, but they were up for a couple days, and at the end of the day, about 250,000 people saw it. I believe that the AI deepfake recordings had an impact of 15,000, 20,000 people who voted for Johnson would have voted for me. I'd be running the city of Chicago right now.
Well, Paul, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This demonstrates the danger of this kind of thing. How close to the actual election did this come out?
This came out right before the primary, and so I would say within about 6 weeks. And it wasn't the only video. My son, for example, is a police officer who was involved in a shooting, which was obviously a legitimate shooting, And there was also a deepfake video done of him, too, that had his voice, even though his microphone was broken, and had a picture of somebody who was very well tattooed. Of course, my son has no tattoos. And, of course, that one spread. And I spent about 2 days answering media questions about it, too. So clearly there was this desire to portray my stance on public safety as someone who did not believe in police accountability, and for somebody who kind of simply dismissed the shootings of civilians.
Hey, it's Dr. Phil here. You know I bought my first gold coin over 25 years ago. I did it to protect my family and our financial future. Now, back then, we were living in uncertain times, and the national debt was growing larger every day. And it is similar today. Higher taxes, government debt, and an unstable economy. It's more important than ever to buy gold and silver. Now, like you, I cherish my faith, my family, and my financial freedom. That's why I recommend you get the Wealth Protection Kit from Goldco, the top-rated precious metals company in the entire country. It shows you how to diversify and protect your retirement savings. Thankfully, with Goldco, you get the peace of mind that thousands of their customers have protected their money with gold and silver. They are A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau and have earned over 6,000 five-star reviews. Now, right now, you could qualify for up to 10% instant match in bonus silver while supplies last. So call Goldco at 855-969-GOLD to learn more. That's 855-969-GOLD. This message is sponsored by Greenlight. A new school year is starting soon. Now, personally, I can't believe how quickly time flies with your children. If you're a parent, you want to make this new school year an opportunity for your children to learn important life skills and continue building independence. For that, I recommend Greenlight. I love how Greenlight helps parents to raise financially smart kids. I wish I had this growing up. With Greenlight Infinity, teens can check in without needing to actually check in, thanks to family location sharing. Go ahead and shine a financially smart light on your family today. Sign up for Greenlight today and get your first month free when you go to greenlight.com/Phil. That's greenlight.com/Phil to try Greenlight for free. Greenlight.com/Phil. Do you know who created the deepfake?
No.
That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. And what happens is, even when they take it down, of course, people continue to repost it over and over and over again. So it was a constant reminder. But, it is what it is. I'm an old history teacher, so I like to point out that if you read the ancient historians, when they talk about characters going back 2,000 years, it pretty much sounds like the personalities and the jealousies and the egos that you experience today. It's
right.
The problem is, people have been trying to describe or create alternate narratives on their opponents for really centuries. It's just our technology has become more advanced.
Right. And it's real hard sometimes to track the source of these things, right?
I mean, it's near impossible, but we can track it back to one source, which is the company that released software without putting out guardrails that allows bad actors to produce lies about someone doing something genuinely honorable, running for office, seeking to represent your community, seeking to bring the wisdom and the experience that you have into public service is an honorable thing to do. And you won't say that about yourself, but I can say it about you. And lying about someone, you talked about the ancients. Throughout history in Athens, running for office was a great honorable thing to do. You were representing the people. Bearing false witness against your neighbor, the Bible tells us, is a sinful thing to do. And that, of course, is what has now been made far too easy. You don't know if it was Russia doing it. You don't know if it was your opponent doing it. You don't know if it was just some kid sitting in their basement who thought for kicks that they would humiliate you. And that's what makes this so problematic.
How did this affect you personally?
It really didn't affect me much because I kind of expected it and I wasn't surprised. I mean, we have people that were hacking our websites to have me posting likes of things that people were posting that said derogatory things about, for example, the city mayor. And newspapers ran stories of that. And of course, at the end, they gave my denials that that was actually me. But the bottom line is politics is a contact sport. I mean, you know, Jefferson financed a publication that called George Washington a traitor. So at the end of the day, you just have to deal with it. Plus, you know, I come from a family of 5 veterans, 4 police officers, 2 firefighters. We're really tough. So we just moved on.
Yeah, it's tragic though. Yeah, and the thing is, it's almost impossible to unring this bell.
It is.
And there has been research that does verify that a lie travels faster than the truth. It was MIT that did that research that says a lie travels 6 times faster than the truth because it is scandalous, so people are interested. It's simpler because it doesn't have to have detail. There are a number of reasons, but once people see that and make up their mind about that, you can come back out and put out a video and say, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. But if 250,000 people have seen that,
that's right,
and some of them believe that, look, we are a society, I won't say that we've all got ADD, but we are a headline-driven society. We read the headlines, not the details. And when you put up a correction, it doesn't get the same attention that the scandalous headline got.
And you're also torn between, do you respond and draw more attention to it? It's a double-edged sword. So that's the dilemma that you run into.
Well, that's called the Streisand effect, which is actually a real effect. One time that Barbara Streisand was trying to suppress some photos of her house. She filed a suit to suppress the photos in this publication, and it went from being seen this many times to like 1 million times. Because if you put your name behind it, a celebrity puts their name behind trying to suppress it, that's like throwing gas on a fire. So you're kind of in a catch-22.
I mean, I think there's 2 things that are really important here. One is that, of course, on these platforms, they're never held accountable. So you're dealing with 2 things. You're dealing with a generative AI platform that produced a deepfake of you. Then you're dealing with social media that allows the transmission of that deepfake to people in your community and all around the world. And in neither of those instances can the company be held accountable. And that's because the framework that we have for holding accountable social media companies, generative AI companies, it's not like the ones that you have to respect here. You have to think about the things that you say. You have to be careful not to lie to people, not to defame people. You have a standards department that will think about these things. But these platforms have no accountability whatsoever. In fact, they have no transparency whatsoever. So it's almost impossible to tell. And the second thing is that the Streisand effect is, that's from the pre-digital era, and it was true back then. In the digital era, it's being turbocharged because the way that platforms work is they decide what content wins and loses. They tell us it's a free speech platform. Sure, whatever. I don't want to hear the voices of 4 billion people in my ears all the time. Make me go crazy. So they decide what wins and what loses. And what wins is the thing that gets most engagement. What gets most engagement is often lies and hate. And often it's not the people saying, I agree. It's the people saying, that's dangerous, that's hateful, that's horrible, or you need to be careful, that might not be true. But actually that, ironically, drives further visibility for it because of the way that their systems work.
Coming up, we're going to meet the presidential candidate who ran his entire campaign with an AI avatar on his website. He'll tell us why he did that and whether it helped or not.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive. Are you driving your car or doing the laundry right now? Podcasts go best when they're bundled with another activity, like Progressive home and auto policies. They're best when bundled too.
Having these 2 policies together makes insurance easier and could help you save. Customers who save by switching their home and car insurance to Progressive save over $775 on average.
Quote a home and car bundle today at Progressive.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $779 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.
Hi, I'm Palmer AI, and I'd love to answer any questions you have about me or our campaign for president.
Meet Jason Palmer, a veteran of the dot-com wars and a successful tech investor for the last 20 years. Jason knows the terrain has been there before and is ready to lead America through the AI revolution.
Well, that was an AI ad from 2024 Democratic presidential candidate Jason Palmer. Now, he launched his presidential campaign by creating an AI version of himself. You did this on purpose because you wanted to showcase how AI has a role or can have a role in this, and people need to be aware of it.
Absolutely. Although I should say the reason I got in the race in the first place is that back in October, November, I remember that Joe Biden had said he was going to be a transitional figure, and I kept waiting for Joe to say that he was going to withdraw. And he never said he was going to withdraw. And I could tell he was getting older and that he was getting slower. And so I'm an entrepreneur and an investor. And I asked a number of my CEOs, I said, what would happen if someone like me got in the race? And pretty universally, my CEOs said, you should totally do that. That would be very different. An example of a business person who's running for president, who's completely the opposite of President Trump. I invest in impact companies. Education technology is my forte. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know I was going to do the AI thing that you saw up there at the beginning. But when people started volunteering for my campaign, I would always ask them, they wanted to knock on doors. And I said, well, what's your superpower? This is what I've always done as an entrepreneur. And one of them said, well, you know, right now my superpower is I'm building some AI tech for my company. And it hit me just like that. I said, wait a minute, I probably could build an AI version of myself. And maybe this would be the first time AI could actually play a role in the election. So to be honest with you, what you could see a demo of, it just cost $30,000 to build by me and my team of volunteers over the course of a month.
Well, we put Jason's avatar to the test and asked it some random questions. Let's take a look at how it worked.
I support a guest worker program for migrants who do not qualify for asylum but have American citizens in their extended family who are willing to sponsor them. I believe that discussing my favorite musician is not relevant to my presidential campaign. Is there anything else you would like to know about my policies or plans for the country? For the record, Billy Joel is my favorite musician. We just didn't load it into the database.
So you have a problem with any campaign that uses an avatar.
Yeah.
What's your problem with it?
You know, the lack of authenticity. I mean, my approach in all the public service jobs I've had as a superintendent 4 times, Chicago, Philadelphia, New Orleans after Katrina, was always to communicate directly to people and to be authentic in communicating. I was really impressed, incidentally, with your ability to communicate using AI in Spanish and things like that. But that lack of authenticity, I think, undermines. There's just a certain dishonesty to it. And I always believe that a candidate should be authentic.
You have even a bigger problem with it. You think it's bad news bears all the way.
It's a creative way of communicating with people, of trying to get your values across. I think the actual product itself will give me nightmares for the next 2 to 3 nights, because that is a weird-looking avatar. But at the same time, here's the thing with things like that. They all seem innocuous at first, right? The point comes, though, where we're so overwhelmed with this sort of stuff that we stop being able to tell what's real and what's not. And that point is the point of greatest peril for democracy. Because when you can't tell what's true or not, and frankly, you give up bothering to tell what's true or not, the natural state then is apathy. And democracy's truest enemy is apathy. It's what the Soviet Union used, was making the information systems chaotic. So people gave up bothering to work out what was true or not, and they held on to the only stable thing in their environment, the tyrant, the leader. And I think that that's what we have to worry about, is taking away the realness, the tangibility, the feel of that decision-making that you make when you cast your vote every 4 years. I think that the problem is that what you're doing might seem cute, but over time, at scale, it actually destroys the relevance, the realness of our democratic choices, and steals that from citizens, and that's not fair to them.
I think it could do that. In fact, when we made this, we had a choice. The reason it looks a little bit weird is we could have done it with a photo or we could have done it with a video. And I chose to do it with a photo, so it would look a little bit unrealistic. I didn't want to make it like when Mark Zuckerberg came out with his virtual reality universe recently, you saw everybody was kind of a cartoon character. It's because we're all wrestling with this right now, like how realistic is too realistic. But I got to tell you all, within 2 years, you'll be able to send your jasonpalmer.ai to a Zoom, and it will go to a Zoom for you, and it will actually communicate as though it's you. It will take notes for you, and that is actually buildable right now. I've seen it in beta. It'll probably take a couple of years to go through safety testing and for people to kind of work out, is this too creepy, or could I send my doppelganger to this meeting when I'm double booked?
Look, I think we're speaking at cross purposes here, because what you're saying is, don't worry, it's going to get more realistic. And I'm saying, no, let's pray to God it doesn't get too realistic, because then at that point, we can't tell the difference between real and fake. And you're right, I've seen the technology where it can look absolutely photorealistic. The problem is that technology, without guardrails, so it can't be abused by people who seek to misrepresent themselves, because every time a candidate does that, if their entire persona is built on a web of lies, then that, again, means that you're not making a real choice between the person that you want to get that phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning and say that something terrible's happened, and to make the right decision. How on earth do you know that that's the right person? Because until now, all you've seen is an artificial intelligence version of them. It is because, and there is a comic aspect to it too. Look, you've got this point where you're talking about putting your AI guy on Zoom. What if all the voters are Zoomed to? What if I can't be bothered listening to you talk about nonsense from an AI avatar? So I think
these
to myself,
are the kinds of things we're going to have to wrestle with.
You know what? Yeah. I'm just going to ask him questions by AI as well. For crying out loud, we want to have a democracy in which people make real decisions about the people they want to represent them, not avatars, because they're not real.
Look, technology is evolving at a rapidity that we cannot imagine, and it's only going to continue to evolve. The things that impacted the quality of our lives 40 years ago now kind of impacts the quality of our life every 5 or 6 months. Mm-hmm. I mean, the genie's out of the bottle. It's like a virus. I think the best thing we can do is to try to find a vaccine, and the vaccine is accountability. As effective as technology has been evolving to where you can have avatars and things like that, maybe our best attention should be focused on how we create a safeguard so that individuals who are watching these things can determine whether it's legitimate or not.
Well, I've got two big concerns about this. One is, I don't want the government regulating this for damn sure. We don't need that. And if you put so much regulation on this that you just drive it offshore, then you lose all control whatsoever. We have to have some controls over this ourselves. But if this gets so regulated, now you are impacting speech. And if that happens, the net result is you have zero control, because it goes offshore and then you don't have any ability to regulate it at all.
We're going to have to find a middle ground on this. People have compared AI to nuclear technology, and I don't think it's a crazy comparison. Self-driving cars are pretty self-driving right now and have a better safety record compared to humans when you look at total number of miles driven.
Yeah, not with me.
Well, but it won't be very long before there will be accidents because there isn't enough regulation. Imran is right. We need more regulation, but it can't be overbearing and stop this in its infancy. Now, when the Nuclear Regulatory Commission came out, so it took about 8 years for those regulations to come to actually create those bodies back from 1945 to 1953. We need to figure this out faster.
I think there are ways to create the conditions in which you can hold these companies accountable, and where they create harm, hold them responsible. And it starts with transparency. It starts with these companies being more transparent with the public about how their systems work. If, for example, every time they generate an AI image or an AI audio, they put a digital watermark so we can tell that this is faked. If, for example, they kept a library of all the stuff that they produced, that there was a way of checking whether or not an image or a video that was produced, there are ways of creating transparency so we can have more understanding of how their systems work. That allows for meaningful accountability, and then you've got to be able to hold them accountable through the courts.
Accountability is the key, where you can go to the person that generated it. Up next, a cybersecurity professor tells us what's real or fake so we don't get duped this November. But that means we've got to be vigilant. We'll meet him next. Brandon Armature is a professor at Utah Valley University and a cybersecurity expert. He works with Suremark Digital, an online identity verification company that combats deepfakes and provides digital IDs for political candidates. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Before I even ask you a question, I'm going to say a lot of this comes down to all of us being vigilant and paying attention. One of the things that you do is teach people how to figure these things out. What do voters need to worry about? How do we spot these things?
So the first thing is actually a principle that's not necessarily new. But if you see something that is so outrageous or seems too good or too bad to be true, that should immediately put up red flags in your mind. Another thing is think about how difficult it would be to create this deepfake, right? So something that is maybe short form, you have, TikTok and Instagram Reels, which are these very short form media, or an image with voice over it, right. And it's something really outrageous. That should definitely set off alarm bells. Now, the other thing that I'll say out front is everything I'm going to cover is of things to look for. These are limitations that the technology has right now. 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, that may not be the case. We may get to a point very quickly where it is photorealistic. It's almost indiscernible. Now, the thing that I would say in terms of this election is we are probably going to see some hijinks and some issues arise in this current election, as we already have, unfortunately. But I think what we really need to be concerned about is at some point over the next couple of years, we're going to cross that photorealistic threshold. Yeah. And the future elections, 2026, 2028, could be very, very difficult if we don't get out in front of this.
And how do you get out in front of it?
So something that we are trying to do right now at UVU is, one, we want to launch this pilot program to start testing technology solutions for candidates to verify the content they put out. And two, one of the biggest problems is it's hard to quantify the problem. Oftentimes people ask me, well, how big of a problem is this? It's a very difficult thing to say, right? So one thing that we're doing is we're working with a neuroscience lab that is typically used to do marketing studies to test how effective are deepfakes in terms of how believable are they? What do people's brain scans look like when they're looking at it, responding to that versus authentic content? So we can try to measure, okay, how close are we to actually crossing that threshold? Are people actually buying this? Is this eliciting some kind of even an unconscious response that this is not authentic?
And what are you finding?
Thus far, we're still in the pre-study phase, but the one thing I will say is that the appetite for this has been absolutely massive in terms of a lot of people, regardless of sector, public sector, private sector, academia, are looking into the future, nonprofit are looking into the future and are seeing how big of a problem this could become very quickly.
So how easy is it to create, say, a voice clone of yourself?
Very easy. Very, very easy. It's a matter of seconds.
Really?
Yep. Yeah. All you need is about 10 to 30 seconds of clear, uninterrupted audio, and you've got a pretty decent voice clone that you can run with.
So there are enough sounds in the words you can get in a 30-second sample to say all the words?
Yes. Yes.
That's scary. So you only need 30 seconds to clone somebody?
Not even. Sometimes it's much less. You could get a decent clone with 5 to 7 seconds.
Right. And back 6 months ago when I made mine, it took about 5 minutes of audio. So that's decreasing over time.
Because it wasn't 10 or 15 years ago that DJs were using soundboards of my voice where they would get words and phrases when people would call in, and they would use my voice on this board to make up nonsensical sentences to tell people things. And now they could actually generate it with a sample.
Yeah.
And of course, they've got 20 years of sampling.
That's true.
Yeah.
For someone like me. All right, so can anyone be a victim of a deep fake? Now, someone here in our audience just did. Brandon will show us how, because he's been at work. This morning, Brandon met up with Jamie, a local talk radio host who was willing to participate in a demonstration to show just how easy it is for AI to manipulate your voice. Take a look.
All I really need from you is about 30 seconds of clear audio. So just speak slowly, clearly, and naturally. So don't feel any pressure. Tell me a little bit about yourself, maybe some things that you're interested in, and some things that you don't like.
All right, cool. So my name is Jamie D. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, born and raised. I moved to Dallas, Texas 2 months ago, and I'm a live morning radio personality and recording artist. And some of my hobbies are playing volleyball, playing tennis. I'm a big foodie. I love to eat. Dallas has so many different restaurants, so I love everything about the food scene here in Dallas. I like to be social, so go out to bars and different events around town. Some things that I don't like, I would say I'm not into shopping as much, or rodeos, or going out to the ranch and wrangling cows and all this like that. But it's cool to watch. That's just not my everyday thing.
Okay, now that we've got these samples, all I'm really gonna be doing is running it through an algorithm, and it will be ready.
Nice.
There it is, it's done.
Already?
It's done.
Oh, wow, that's insane.
That was pretty quick, right?
Yeah, it was crazy.
And you were just talking in your regular voice, right?
Yeah, my regular Jamie D voice.
Okay. And so we gave you a little script you didn't have before. In fact, I worked on it a little bit myself. Let's see if we have him saying some things that he didn't say and probably would never say.
Welcome back to PBR on Merritt Street, the biggest and most exciting bull riding league in the world. We have all the top teams, from the Arizona Ridge Riders to the New York Mavericks. There's always plenty of action, upsets, spills, thrills, and excitement. And who will survive the 8 seconds? It's all here on Merritt Street. And the big news is I am riding a bull for the first time on national television. I can't wait.
Okay.
Wow.
So I'm excited to hear you're riding a bull.
Right, I'm like, went from saying I wouldn't be on a ranch at all to literally riding a bull today.
Yeah. So did it sound like you to you?
To me, no, because I know what my voice sounds like. I feel it in my body. But for somebody who doesn't talk to me every day or just get snippets of me, I can so see how that would confuse them.
You know, it's funny because oftentimes people say that the clone doesn't sound like them. So for example, I cloned a former governor. And he goes, that didn't sound like me at all. We showed it to his family, and his family all went, Dad, when did you record this?
Yeah. No, I listen to myself on television, and I have the same response every time. My God, spit it out. Come on, speed it up. It sounded like you to me, just from what I've heard.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Because again, when I hear myself on the radio, just like you, I'm like, I criticize my voice. I'm just like, ugh, that's just crazy. But just hearing my voice now, I can 100% see somebody believing that and taking that as I'm a bull rider. And I'm on Merritt Street right now on PBR. So it's kind of scary.
Well, we do have PBR. You are on Merritt Street, and we will have a bull for you coming up.
Sign me up. I'll be there.
I'm curious, how many of you in the studio audience here are concerned that during this election season, you could be duped by an AI? Raise your hand. Yeah, my hand's up, by the way. And I said it does come down to us to be vigilant, because we do get in the habit of, if we see something on the internet, you know, we don't open it up thinking, okay, I gotta watch out for this. We just open it up looking for information or relaxing at home, and we don't have our guard up. People on the internet, some of them are responsible, some are not, and some are outright psychopathic liars. And you just have to know there's the full gamut. When I put out information here on this platform, we fact check everything before we put it out. After we do the show, it goes back to what we call our brain room, and they review the transcripts. And if I misspoke or said anything that maybe I conflated two things accidentally, those fact checkers go through, check it again, and if it's wrong, we fix it or it doesn't go out. I wrote a book recently called We've Got Issues, how you can stand strong for America's soul and sanity. And that's how we met, actually. I was including some of Imran's research, and it was long and detailed, so I summarized it. And before I included it in the book, I contacted you, included the excerpt, asked if it accurately described the research, and asked your permission to include it in the book, which isn't required, but it's just what you do, right? And you said, yes, that's a good representation, and you do have my permission, and thank you for asking. Responsible people do that, right? But that's not who's on the internet. That's not what people do. They write things with the idea of influencing. So we just have to be careful and have our guard up. You gave some great things that we have to look for. We're going to put those on drphil.com, a list of them there so you can see. And if somebody is going to do something, it's very likely, you said the October surprise, what's going to come up. If there's going to be something where they're cloning and putting something out, it's probably going to be very close to the election. So the individual that's victimized doesn't have time to fight back, doesn't have time to offset. So just be aware, if there's some big news that comes out, and if it's coming out of the candidate's mouth real close to the election, be aware, I really need to cross-check this before I let it influence. We have to be doing our due diligence to verify if something is right or if it's not. There was just a letter that came out from Zuckerberg to Jim Jordan, the Department of Justice, saying, hey, apologize for letting the Democratic legislative branch influence us at Meta in the past. I looked at that and said, that's pretty groundbreaking information, but I need to find out, did he really write this letter? And we didn't say anything about it here until Jim Jordan confirmed that that was a real letter that came to him. I wasn't saying about that until I found out if it was real, if it was legit. You just have to be vigilant. That's all I'm saying. I hope tonight was information that you can use and we'll pass on. I want to thank all of our guests tonight, including Imran Ahmed, Paul Vallas, Jason Palmer, and Brandon Armature. Thank you guys for being here and shedding a light on all of this.